Welcome, welcome everyone to our Family Talk Friday. I am Tanya, a proud chairperson of the UW3 Warriors, and we're about to dive into some amazing topics. I want to thank everyone for coming in and chiming into our amazing Family Talk Friday. Now, we are here to discuss an incredible but exciting topic. But what's so exciting is that we have done this for months and months ahead, and we have so many individuals that are chiming into our channel because our goal as GW3 Warriors, thanks to our founder, Renee Noor, is to pour into so many families' life. But today we have a special guest. Our guest is Deborah Vick, which we're going to chime in and answer questions when it comes to our topic, which we're going to discuss in a few seconds. Deborah, where are you? Come on over.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great, Deborah. Thank you so much for joining this evening segment.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let us hear a little about you, Deborah.
Wow, that's a big open-ended question.
Yes.
So, I like to say I'm creating spaces to help people learn how to adapt to whatever challenges that we have, and adapting to my dog making sounds in the background. But that element of creating adaptation, whether it's in parenting, whether it's in the family life, whether it's in our business industries, or as many know, in my cases with my various disabilities, it's how do we adapt and how do we live our best life here in the now and in our future days to come.
Awesome. That's so incredible. So, what you're doing, you are creating a lifestyle for adoption, okay? Which is incredible because, as we grow through life, we have to be able to adapt to different things, okay? But this evening, our topic will be focused on unstoppable family members, okay? How do we create an unstoppable family? Now, what are the areas and what are the tips that you would give your family for them to be unstoppable? That could be your spouse, that could be your children, it could be your aunts and uncle. What are the different strategies that you create to have an unstoppable family?
First thing that comes to my mind is communication and being open. And my family has is my biggest support. My family have been through many life experiences with me, many near death experiences with me as well, and have constantly been there to support, encourage, inspire, engage me, and to just be there to help. I'm very fortunate. I am a mom to two teenage boys and a pet mom too. I have a cat and a dog, and I've been married with my husband. I've been together for over 27 years. And so I'm also very fortunate to have him. But I also have my parents and my brother, my sister-in-laws, my brother-in-laws, everybody, my cousins, have all been there to support me in all the different challenges. And I like to always refer back to the competition last summer. My brother drove out from New York to see me in Ohio compete in the Miss Wheelchair competition. My parents drove up from Arizona. My cousin came out from Arizona, from Texas. My family came out from California. It's just shows of that connection through community, through growth, and through being open. Uh, as a mom, I've made mistakes, and I tell my kids, I'm sorry. I'm only human. I'm doing the best I can, and let's try our best to move forward together and find new ways to, I'm going to say, I'm trying to find the right term because I don't want to say something that might not be appropriate. Let's just say finding a new way or a new solution together. And a lot of that comes through being open and being able to admit challenges and celebrate the wins and the strengths.
What an excellent share, Deborah. What I really loved about your share is that one, we're all humans, right? So there are times that we have to pause and apologize, right? Even though we're parents, right? Because sometimes we say some things that may throw our children off a little bit, and it wasn't, it wasn't meant to be, right? But it just slipped out. So it's okay for us to pause and apologize. But communication is so important for every family, okay? And when we communicate, there's so many different aspects to communication, right? We communicate with our children in a different manner. We communicate with our spouses in a different manner. We communicate with our siblings in a different manner. And I always communicate really, when I communicate with my brother, we're just laughing on the phone. So that's a different form of communication. So this creates unstoppable families. But there are other ways of creating an unstoppable family. One, we have to pour into our children that they can accomplish everything in life, right? So everything that they put their mind to, they can accomplish it. Okay. There are other tips of creating that unstoppable family is preparations. For example, mothers with little ones, right? We have to pack those lunch boxes early in the morning. You remember that, right, Deborah? When did you pack your kids' lunch boxes? You pack them overnight or the morning of? When did you pack your kids' lunch boxes?
I usually did it with my kids at nighttime, and this way they were part of the process. And as just 2 seconds before this started, my son just came home because Friday is our early days, not their early days, and we're going to be cooking lunch after this together. So we still continue some of that element, but we did do it at nighttime for the majority part that can be done together. And then I would typically get up and finish the morning part, the cold part or the warm part. And then over the years, my husband started finishing the breakfast and the packing in the morning. So it transitioned, especially when the morning became harder for me. My husband stepped in.
So I love the fact that it transitions, right? So sometimes mothers that have children in, like close range, maybe they're like 2 years apart or a year apart, it prepares you for life, a long term, right? Because you're always preparing, you always have the bags ready. And even when they become adults, you're still in preparation, right? So that's a big part. And that helps us to create families that are unstoppable. Now, the other areas that are really, really important is just having a discussion about finances, right? It is so
Well, to continue that conversation, it is important to have that conversation. Oh, there we are. I was continuing with the element of having that conversation about the finance.
Yes, it's really, really important because one, there's different aspects to it, right, Deborah? So you're communicating with your husband about finances in a different manner than even with your children, right? Because as they grow, they got to learn how to earn and save, right? So we're having these multiple conversation with our family in different aspects. So these create strong and unstoppable families. Now, what are the other ways you're able to create that family, that unstoppable family? What are the other tips, Deborah?
So I did
Take
want
it
to
away.
also add with that finance concept, there are different types of digital cards, credit cards that we can do with our teenagers. And the one that I have with both of my boys does require chores being done. And they get money in there, and then money have to divide it between savings. They could put some in spending. If they want to put extra money in spending, they have to get permission. And then they also have a charity section. So they are kind of learning that element of saving, of investing, of we even have a deal if they save a certain amount of money, we will help match it for a larger purchase to encourage the saving to have that long term goal. So, those are some of the other things we've added in that element too. But also the play, you were saying that unstoppable families to play together, their growth together. That is so important. My husband is a gamer and my kids are gamers, so they will game together. But so will I in other ways that I can still do with them. But I also do STEAM projects and crafting projects, and my kids will join me in some of those. I'm a scout leader, and I lead alongside my boys' troop. And when they were in Cub Scouts, It led to dens at different times because my kids are 4 years apart. But we camp together, we travel together, we build together, and all of those add to these different elements. And then they get to see me do my advocacy work. My boys have joined me in different advocacy venues. And when, especially some of the digital ones, they've come online and they've joined me in those digital advocacy spaces as well.
That's incredible, Deborah. And I love when you mentioned about you being a Girl Scout leader, or, the Scout. I remember when my daughter was in Girl Scouts, I mean, it taught us so much, right? So when we go on camping trip, it really teach them quite a bit that internet is not always going to be around, right? Let's get into nature. But while we're in nature, guess what? We're bonding, right? We're doing campfires, we're around bonfires, we're doing s'mores, and we're prepping for life. Like building your tent on your own, that's a big deal because you have to go to bed, right? So we have to build these tents. So it teaches us a lot as family. So no matter what happens, we're going to still go, right? So we are unstoppable. So these are basic skills, and they're very important skills that we need to teach our children, that life is not always with running water and internet and a cell phone. When you get out in the woods, we're going to enjoy it. But guess what? It gives you that lifetime skill forever. Now, there are other ways we can also create an unstoppable family. Is that when there are chuckles, they're chuckles. And when there are things that are not going your way, we still got to go. But we have to keep pouring into our children that we've got to keep going. But also, as family members and also parents, we also have to be an example, right? So when things, you have a flat tire on the beltway, you go into a birthday party, you're like, oh man, what are we gonna do? We have to jump out and get our skills together, right? Now, do you know how to change a tire, Deborah? Do you know how to do that?
I do actually.
There you
Now,
go.
I may not have the physical strength anymore, but I do know the skill set.
There
It
you go.
was actually my dad required for both my brother and myself before we could even get our learner's permit to be able to
Mhm.
take off. And we had to do it.
Mhm.
All four tires, put them back on again, show how everything worked under the engine or under the hood. Okay, and now I understand nowadays it's a little bit different under the hood, but we had to do that. And we were now my dad did allow me not to have to change the oil because I was already full on dealing with disabilities at that point in time. But it was at the time a running joke in my household that my mother used to say if she was stuck on the LIE, it was me that she wanted because I knew how to do the tire change and those other elements. Nowadays, I think she want my brother, but just logistics wise. But that element of independence is really important. And that was something that my dad and my mom instilled in me at a very early age. My mom's a retired nurse, my dad's a retired teacher, and the values that they instilled in us of that independence, of that strength, of that perseverance, it was built into my brother and myself when we were young. And many people know my story and my journey. And my brother, he's an Ironman several times over too. So that perseverance, that pushed through both of us. And my kids see it all the time. And when they question, why am I going camping? And I have like a camelback with my IV fluids, and I figured out cute, interesting ways to transform my camelback to be an IV bag and to do my machines and so forth. But it's for the experience, it's for the growth together, it's for the memories. And that's we go the same as we go through what we go through. We go through what we go through. You know what I'm trying to get with those words there. And it's so true because it is. And that's something that my kids get to see. And I get to see that in them as I watch them emerge in their own leadership roles within the scouting world and their own communities. I'm seeing it from what I've done. So sorry, my dog is very vocal today. My experiences and their experiences. I'm going to mute in 1 second and have my son take him. And it's helped us grow a lot. I'm going to pause for 1 second.
Okay, one day we're gonna have your beautiful dog in our live show. That would be really nice. Now, Deborah, I like that from the scouting. I see you dive back into scouting that it really made an impact in your children's life, right? Whether it be Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. And that also me. I mean, when I was a young girl, a little girl, I was a Girl Scout, but I learned so much, so much. When you're in the woods, you're doing so much, you're bonding, but what we learn as a family is that, everything doesn't just build in a day. We learn a lot, making sure those tents go up on time, making sure that we're up early in the morning to get breakfast going. And then, going on a hike, right? And then sometimes we're coming back, it's getting a little bit dark, but making sure that we have everything that we need. Do we have flashlights? Do we have snacks? Do we have a backpack? So when you learn from these different communities, it helps to create an unstoppable family. Okay, just like the flat tire, we're on our way to a birthday party, got to jump out and change the tire and keep going. So these are life skills that we can use to pour into our family. And as parents or as uncles and aunts, it's a great example that we set for our children. All right. Now, are there any other areas that you would dive into to create a unstoppable family? What are the other areas?
I always resort back to teaching about SMART goals, about how to create those SMART goals. And I used to teach that in my leadership programs with youth service programs that I was involved with. But I started with my boys when they were young. I ended up finding some really great platforms that Teachers Pay Teachers is a program for teachers and educators, but anybody can go on and use them. They had some really great children's version of the SMART goals. And I remember my kids being in kindergarten and putting it on their binder just to have the pictures and the elements so they understood what a SMART goal meant and how to create a SMART goal for a kindergartner. And obviously, it's different now with my oldest being 16. His SMART goals are going to be very different, and especially with AP exams coming around and all those. That's different, going to be a whole different ball game, right? With my younger son, he's 12, the year that he gets trained for his bar mitzvah. So he has different SMART goals happening. And teaching that goal planning, short-term plans and the long-term plans, that helps create that unstoppable moment now and in that future, because they need to know how to develop these skills as well as how to communicate the thought process that goes behind it. So that is something that I think is really valuable, as well as now they spend a lot of time on the computer, but we are also avid readers in our family. So encouraging the reading or getting out in nature or getting into sports. Back in the day, we used to taekwondo together. My younger son, my boys and I would do taekwondo together. My husband, not so much, but he drove us. So he was still involved, just didn't quite get on the floor mat. But we did do it together. I helped them in their transitions and for their tests, and then I started doing it as well. And we did it together. So that growth, that experience, that test, that learning how to communicate, that discipline all feeds in together of developing that confidence, that empowerment, that connection, and have a lot of humor and sarcasm as well. So we have a lot of fun. It also creates a very much of an unstoppable family because we're going to be together through thick and thin and always there to support one another.
Love your share, Deborah. You mentioned another great aspect, having fun with your family, right? You're unstoppable because sometimes, you may have a long week. The kids, they do have a long week, especially those high schoolers. They're studying, they're applying to 10 different colleges. They have long days, right? So just pausing and having fun, But what does the fun involve? Different things, right? You can go to your favorite ice cream store. You can see which dessert is my favorite, right? So you can stop at your ice cream shop. You can also have family games. You can also just go into your children's room and just talk to them and just chuckle with them, right? So just having that time will create an unstoppable family. So we can always be creative in many ways when it comes onto our family. Now, another important area is making sure that our family is on a healthy plan, right? Making sure everyone is active, drinking lots of water, eating properly, because at the end, our health is wealth, right? So we have to create that for our children or be an example for them. But I notice the new generation right now, they're pretty healthy. I see them, they're in the gym, they're hiking, they're biking. I'm really impressed by these 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. They're really taking health at another level. If I do compare that to my time when I was like 16, 17 years old, which was like last year, we weren't doing those things, right, Deborah? Were we going to the gym
No.
often? No, not
Well,
really. So
and something that I
go
love that
ahead,
you
Deborah.
mentioned that
Uh-huh.
because because cooking can be challenging for me in
Yes.
getting the food supplies in, we started doing one of those delivery services where we are picking out the meals and we still have to cook it, but it's bringing in healthier choices and options for us. So we have been decreasing the fast food and we have been increasing the cooking of the more healthier foods and the natural ingredients, and we're cooking it together. So we are family bonding over the cooking, over the choosing of the meals because we're choosing meals together. And also, when I was working with my son last night when we are cooking one of the dinners, I commented that part of this is to move towards a more plant-based food style because I do have the autoimmune conditions and I know plant-based is better for that. And my son turns to me and goes, Mom, come on. I know all this already. We talk about this all the time in phys ed. We know plant-based is better. We know the processed foods aren't good. I mean, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it was kind of like, okay. It was very interesting how much they are already aware of this and that element of the more natural foods and the less processed. And I commented too about here in America, a lot of the processed food diets, there seems to be a correlation about certain health diseases and the processed foods. And so we were talking about that, and he was, "Yep, we're discussing this, Mom. I know all about that." And I was going, "Well, that's good to know."
And as I mentioned earlier, Deborah, this generation, I'm really impressed. He knew about plant-based products, right? And even this group of there's certain things that they won't eat. And I'm always impressed by them. Water intake is amazing. They watch their diet, they're in the gym, they're biking. So they're more aware, which I'm really super excited about. This generation of teenagers, they are aware of their health because at the end of the day, right, our health is our wealth, right? So we have to help them to have a healthy lifestyle so they can grow into that amazing, healthy person for the longevity of their lifestyle. So those are other tips that we can use to create an unstoppable family. Okay. Now, the other area is really important is our finances, right? As a family, we have to make sure things are in place. We also have to have a discussion with our family. Like for we as mothers, right? We have to have a discussion with our children about emergency, right? So we have to have that discussion. What should you do if this happens? I remember with my mom, she always had a discussion with us. Okay, this is where this is where this is, and this is what we have to do. So you always, as family, as mothers and fathers, have a discussion with your children. Super, super important. So any shift in the wave, your children will know exactly what to do. Now, what are the other tips you think that we can help our community to create unstoppable family?
I know we've talked a lot about the communication, right? And whether that's the finances or whether that's the chores or the roles, but also about the future, right? Because it's important to have that conversation. I know my older son, his heart is set on serving in the military. And we've talked very much about college and his plan and his action plan. Right now, it is college and it is ROTC, and then going in and enlisting. And he has this plan designed. It can change, and we're very aware of that. But it also talks about, since that's his interest, we have been connecting with people in the military and in different branches of the military, having these real conversations of what it's like, not just with recruiters, but with people that have served, with the veterans, with people that are in active duty, and making sure we're giving seed and plant, giving the growth and the ability for these seeds to grow and develop without saying that something can't be done. Because nobody, I don't want to say nobody, it's not really, I don't think, I know I don't like to be told something can't be done. I would much rather somebody show me ways it may possibly be done or other options. But to sit down and to have that real plan and that discussion. I know when I went to college, well, technically before I even started college, my dad had me sit down. That's the educator in him, but had me sit down and plan out all of my college years. Now, we knew it could change, but to plan out what my ideal goal is my ideal career path and what were going to be my courses that I would do over that period of time so that I could plan out what my career would be like. And more importantly, my schedules and my courses and how that all interacted. And this is applicable whether it's a job, whether it's community college, whether it's college, or whether it's a trade school. But having that discussion and showing our youth that we, thank you, Peter, that we care about what their future entails. Being open and being present. And I do have to say too, since I am on Clubhouse a lot and I'm on social media a lot, taking that time to pause other devices and other activities to have these one-on-ones so that our youth know that we care and that we do value them and their time and that we are committed to giving them that one-on-one connection and time with us.
Well, that's such an incredible point, Deborah. You know, the same thing that our parents did for us or continue to do for us, that's the same example we want to set for our children, right? It's the same way, like, when it was time when I was in high school, my mom, I always knew what field I wanted to be in, right, in high school. So I always wanted to be in dentistry. And then my mom and dad would have a conversation with me, say, okay, which university you want to go to? Where should we look? What are the steps that we should take? And right along the way, they did it. So that's the same thing we have to do for our children, because when you look at it right now, the world has shifted. Do you agree, Deborah? Is there any changes in the world?
There's tremendous amount of shifts that have
Yes.
happened in the world.
Hmm.
However, that planning element and that discussion element, that's still valid. When my husband and boys drove out to Ohio, they stopped at some colleges and universities that might be of interest to my older son, even if just to plant the seeds of this is what college tours look like, these are what universities look like, these are some of the programs. But that planning element, that hasn't changed, right? And if anything, it's even more needed today because things can shift so quickly, as we've all seen in the past few years, how quickly the universe can shift on us, that it is important to have the plan because we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what adaptations we might need, or even what venues we might need to veer towards and around and pivot to come back again to where we started from. But when we have a good foundation, oh my goodness, thank you, Peter. My gosh, you're so loud. When we have that, apparently my younger son can't hear me right now. I think he has his headphones on. uh,
Yes, Deborah. So you made some great tips because yeah, it seems that both of us, our children are in the same age group. 'Cause my daughter is getting ready to go on some college tours and it's really exciting. So even when we pass these different universities, they want to be in state, out of state, we're gonna have them exposed, okay? 'Cause you just never know. And it depends on what your child wants to do, right? Which major. But when it comes on to their major, as parents, we have to really sit them down, right? And talk to them because the world has certainly shifted. But one thing that hasn't shifted is the planning, right? So the same planning work from our great grandmother days is still working right now. But we also have to sit and really hear from our children. What do you really want to become? Which field do you think you'll go into and guide them along the way? Super, super important so your family can become unstoppable. But that guidance is important. And I always go back to that the world has shifted. So, we want to make sure that they're going into majors that are, demand, majors that are in demand, right? Because the whole workforce has changed right now. You have to be interviewed on Zoom first before you go in person. In our days, right, Deborah, we show up with our resume in our hand,
Yep.
and we got the binder going, right? Now you email
Yes.
your resume, it's scanned, it's reviewed, and you're gonna have an interview, two phases, right? You're gonna have the Zoom interview, and then you're going to go in person. So I always remind my children, let's get ready for the interview. You can practice in front of the mirror, you can practice in front of your camera. So let's pretend that that's Zoom, or you can go straight into Zoom, just turn the camera on and be ready for these interviews. So these are the different tips that we can use to guide our children to where we are right now. Because in the past 3 years, we have certainly seen an amazing shift when it comes to technology. Even kids that are applying to colleges, things are really changed. Are they accepting certain SAT scores? Are certain university waiving these things? So we have to look and help them to be on, being alert on how the way the world is right now. We are looking at kids that are investing right now with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So kids are more, our children are really on top of things. But at the same time, we have to also making sure that they're guided in the right way. That will create an unstoppable family. All right, Deborah. Any other tips,
I was gonna have
Deborah?
one thing too, being flexible. So we used to like to say when we used to plan for the Cub Scout camps, plan for the best, you know, hope for the best, right? You plan for the absolute best. You keep in mind the absolute worst that could happen and be flexible for everything in between because we don't know what tomorrow holds, right? And that can really ask you to take him out. Honey. That obviously was not taking him out, but being flexible for all of the in between because so much happens. But if you give that solid foundation and that ability to be able to pivot and adapt, I think my other son is home now, to adapt, it's all good, right? Because you know that even when you fall off that horse, you can get back up again and you can still be successful if you created that solid foundation for yourself and not afraid to fall because falling isn't a failure. It's just simply falling forward. It's another learning experience. It's something you gained from it. No matter what that challenge is, there's always something to take away from that experience that will help you down the line.
Awesome. That's such an incredible gem, Deborah. We also have to teach our children that it's okay to fall forward. Okay. So even if you haven't gotten that B, you end up getting a C, your goal is to work harder next time, right? To get those great grades. So we have to encourage them that even if you get something didn't go right, it's okay. You're going to use it as a learning experience. That gives them more strength because the world is not perfect. You're not perfect either. So learn from these errors, learn from these mistakes. But what's important that you're learning from what happened, okay? The other great tip for families in order to create an unstoppable family is to teach our children to read. Make sure they're reading. I know it's a little challenging right now because of technology, right? but I know they have audiobooks or the libraries are still open. They're still open, right? So you can still go and borrow a book. Or if you don't want to physically go and get the book, Amazon will deliver it, right? So have them read books that pour into their lives, right? It can be fun books. It can also be books that help them with the future. Because if your child is in high school right now, yeah, we're about to step out into the real world. So we have to teach them how to save. We have to teach them how to, explore the world. So reading really opens up their mind, okay? They can start because I see right now, Deborah, there are so many young entrepreneurs. I'm really, really impressed. Kids are in high school, they're baking cupcakes and they're selling. They're making bracelets and they're selling, right? And my son friend, he is an incredible young man too. He's cutting hair. So he's an entrepreneur in high school as a barber. So he's actually cutting his classmates' hair. So the pandemic has taught families quite a bit. And I'm really impressed by these high schoolers. They are young, incredible entrepreneurs. So, mommy doesn't or daddy doesn't have to buy everything. Now you're earning and you will appreciate money in a different format, right? So they're
Yep.
earning, they're saving, and I'm sure they're watching how much they're spending. What do you think about these young generational entrepreneur right now, Deborah?
I love it. And earlier today, I was mentioning a few years back, I was at a conference for a rare disease conference, and a young woman, she's my son's 12, she's 12, she's the same age as my son. She was selling cookies door to door to raise funds to help find a cure for her friend who had a rare disease. And it ended up being a neighbor said, "You should start selling these online." She did, and she ended up raising over $60,000, and it paid for the researcher because they already had a researcher, a scientist who was ready and willing, but they needed the funding, and they were able to get the funding to get the treatment that this particular boy needed. So when that was done, she didn't stop. She continued on. She joined ventures with several other children, and now this program I think it's called Cookies for a Cure, and they're working with youth across the country, and all the money that they raise goes back into funding for rare diseases, for children's rare disease research. And they have now worked on several different conditions for different children along the way, and they're not just raising funds. They're not just learning entrepreneurship. They are saving lives. And I get emotional about it because, when I go to these conferences, many of these rare diseases, because the majority of rare diseases impact children, and more than half, more than half are fatal. So I see these parents who continue to advocate past their children's lives in the memory of their children, and to see a young girl who is now 12. Sorry, my son is cracking me up in the background here doing funny rabbit ears. Uh, but to see this young woman do these things and work with other children across the country to care for and help others was just amazing. And I saw another woman who had seen in uh, third world countries children without limbs, not able to maneuver or get around, start creating artificial limbs with her 3D printer, and then they were shipping them across the globe to help other youth and children across the world. So these truly incredibly inspiring. Designing. Sorry, my kid is cracking me up. Uh, incredibly inspiring and making these differences for so many people at such an early age. Something that technologies allow them to do, and to see that impact and to see that they're making life-changing impacts for so many other people. It's just mind-blowing.
It is really mind blowing, Deborah. First of all, the thought, right? She had a friend that had a rare disease, and she said, how can I raise fund to help our parents treat her friend? Now, by doing so, that passion just explored. And it explored also in helping her friend. So, these are other areas that can help empower our families, right? We teach our children that not everyone's fortunate, right? Not everyone has the resources to treat these diseases. And of course, insurance companies not necessarily cover the entire treatment, but if we can raise fund, and while she's doing so, she created a whole business for herself. And then people saw the need, and people also saw her passion behind her mission, and she was able to raise over $60,000 as a young woman at 12 years old. So that's why I'm telling you, Deborah, this new generation, they're very impressive. I'm really impressed by their mission, their hard work, and it helps them to create within their family unstoppable moments. Okay. So, I'm
Did want to
excited
say it was
about.
60,000 when she was about 10. It's
Wow.
over several hundred thousand now. I've
And when she
lost
was
I
10.
haven't checked recently how much. Last time I checked it was over 200,000
That's
that she had
amazing.
raised.
That's absolutely amazing. But just the thought, right? The
Right.
thought of having, thinking about her friend that is going through such a hard time, and financially she was able to raise, and the mission is going, right? So she's able to help people globally. That's really impressive. So that creates she has an unstoppable family, definitely. So these are the different tips that we can use as family members to empower our children, empower our family in creating that unstoppable moment. And there's no reason why we can't be unstoppable, right? There is absolutely no reason, because we got it from our grandparents, our great grandparents, our parents. And now let's pass the baton to our brilliant children, and pass the baton to our brilliant family. Now, when we look at the
I have one
future, or
other.
where we are right now, right? Do you think we need to be in a little speed mode, or what do you think? Do you think that we're like, we have to teach our children to move a little bit faster? Okay, put that shoes on a little
Mhm.
bit faster, the socks a little bit faster. What do you think? Do you think that they have to, move at a certain pace now, because one, the world definitely lost a year, right? When the world
Right.
closed down because of COVID. Do you think that we have to really teach our children to move a little bit faster?
It's a really good question. And I would say no, because if we move too fast, we lose sight of the space in front of us. As a person who is really immersed in the mindfulness practice, a lot of it is about being present in the moment. If we are so focused on the future, we're losing out on what's in front of us in the here and the now. So, and as I'm watching my kids grow, right, and it seems like leaps and bounds every minute. Like my kid comes home, I'm like, "How did you get to be so tall all of a sudden? And when did you start growing facial hair?" I mean, just these little things that happen. You notice it, but you don't always know it. If you don't stop to smell the roses, right, you can't experience life now. And for me, having had these challenges, I know life is so fleeting and we don't know what our tomorrow holds. And if we're so focused on tomorrow, we're missing out on today. So I don't want to rush it because I want to experience any moment that I can now because I know my kids are going to be off in a few years to college and they're going to be gone and they'll be, "Hey mom, I'm over here and hi, bye." And as it is, it's hi and bye pretty quickly, right? So I it's the life of a teenager and I know that. But I don't want to lose that part of it. And the other element that I was going to mention too is as parents, one of the things that we can do is feed into the interests of our kids. If they like to cook, bring in some things where we can cook, make the barrier to cooking lesser, right? Like I'm bringing these food plant ideas in, right? We still have to chop up the food, we still have to cook it, but it's coming to the door where I can access it and we can do it together. My younger son, he likes STEAM projects still. So we have STEAM kids come together and we work on them. I don't get to do them with him anymore. I get to watch, but that's okay. It's still is still together, right? We're still engaging with that because they like computers. I'm all for them creating a YouTube account or using the cameras or Twitch or whichever program they like to do or the esports, whatever it is your child likes to do. Delve into that. And I get it. College isn't necessarily for every person. It might not be that particular person's cup of tea, path, skill set, but whatever it may be, in, engage with that. My cousin, her daughter, she went to a trade school. She is works on Harley Davidson bikes, right? That's her passion. She inspired that. She worked with that, and that's great. Back to my growing up, I worked with tools and I worked with crafts and jewelry and all sorts of things. So I remember my senior year, my dad picked out gifts for me, which included a beautiful pair of gold earrings and a new tool set as well to prepare me for college. So really taking a step back, looking at what your kids' interests are, engaging that and helping that grow, feed into it. And you can also get games that are not all technology. We Magic the Gathering, we Dungeons and Dragons, that's okay, yes, we're a little bit on the sci-fi, techie, other card game type of things, role-playing things, but that's our family, and that's okay. So everybody's is going to be different, but choose it together. Take that time, find out their interests, inspire more, and see how you can make it grow even further.
Awesome. I love the fact that you said, we have to slow down and enjoy every moment of our children, right? And there's no speed to it because time goes by so fastly. So we have to enjoy them every second of the day. And then also, we have to really find out their interests. What do they really love, right? We're going to dive into the teenagers because, as you mentioned, Deborah, college is not for everyone, right? College is what you make it, right? So whether they are in an institution coming out with an undergraduate or graduate degree, or they go into an incredible program that they come out with an excellent certificate, but their skills are in place and they're part of an amazing company, just like your friend. She came out and she's a part of Harley Davidson, right? So we also have to see and learn and know our children, right? Some bound and some are not, but both institutions are great because that is what the workforce is looking for right now. They're looking for children, or they are babies still, although they're heading to college, right, Deborah? They're looking for teammates that can bring their company forward. So that goes back to, whether they went to college or they went to an incredible program, as long as they're able to be a part of a team or part of a company and bring that company forward. Now, also, there are other areas to create unstoppable families, and we're diving into our children this evening a lot because, we also have to make sure that their social skills are in place, right? Making sure that they're greeting people, making sure they're communicating with family members, making sure that it's consistent, okay? And the pandemic didn't help it at all, right? But we want to make sure they get out and socialize with other people because this is becoming a norm, right? The masking and hoping that one day this disease, this virus will disappear. But in the meantime, we have to make sure that their social skills are on point. Really, really important. And what do you think about the social skills when it comes to your children's social skills? Why is that so important at this time in the world?
Well, I will say I have definitely seen a difference in how both of my children socialize since COVID. And I know in part it is because of their own concern for my personal health that they don't want to be too close to people for fear of bringing home something that could make me sick. But, having that for us is pretty much about my younger son, it was almost 2 years that he was in social isolation because he wasn't old enough for the vaccine when the school year started last year. So he had asked to stay home because of the way the school was set up. They were not socially distancing, and that was very concerning for him. And he was asking for me, so I had to honor something that he was trying to do, for his mama. But it definitely impacts that element, right? And yet, learning how to socialize is really important. And that is why for us, scouting became so valuable. I mean, we've been doing it for, wow, I'm on my 11th year. So, we got my 11th year as a Boy Scout leader. And my youngest son's pretty much grown up in it because I was wearing him in a sling when I became a Boy Scout leader. But, for them, it is a controlled social environment, right? And so even with people with neurodivergencies, there is a place for growth, communication, and ability to learn how to interact with people. And that is something that is important because learning how to socialize can be challenging in the first place. For those that have neurodivergencies, even more challenging. But there is still a way to do so that can be beneficial. And even if it is being done not on a daily basis, even if it's being done in a limited fashion, when we teach our children these things, we can teach them how to greet, how to say hello, how to shake someone's hand. Okay, maybe not shake someone's hand right now because we're not really doing that, but how to introduce yourself, how to say, "Hi, my name is Deborah Vick, and how are you today?" Just the simple niceties or if one's able to, the eye contact. Those all matter. Holding the door open for somebody or picking something up from somebody when they're struggling. Yeah, and these are the common courtesies, but are invaluable. I remember it was a few years, about a year and a half ago, maybe. The older son was traveling with me. I had to go to a conference, and my husband wanted him to. I need help, and he went with me. And there was a woman who had two children in a stroller, and her mother or mother-in-law was the woman that she was with her. I want, and she was in a wheelchair, and she was rushing from the terminal. This was in LAX, rushing from one terminal to the international terminal, and she couldn't get assistance. And she asked for the security at the airport to assist. She asked where she grabbed the luggage from for assistance, and they all said no. And they were just hanging out there, but they said no. And my son turned to me, and goes, "Mom, can I go help her?" And I was looking at him, and goes, "I'm a Boy Scout. I'm supposed to be of service. Can I go help her?" And I'm like, "Oh, and tell my son no, he wants to go help somebody." I'm like, "Of course, you can go help." And he went and helped her. And she tried to give him money for it. He goes, "No." He goes, I'm a Boy Scout. I'm supposed to help people. I'm not supposed to take money for helping somebody." And he came back afterwards, but it was just that element of being of service and being part of a greater community taught him that when he saw this poor woman struggling and trying to push the luggage, because our airplane did come in late, that transition between the national airport and the international airport was so challenging for her that it was his desire to just jump up and help. Those are things that we can teach at an early age just by doing, just by being a person of service, by being a servant leader, by being compassionate, and by showing by example that we can care for our community members teaches them. So that was just that other element that I was thinking of creating these unstoppable families because we're doing it through compassion, we're doing it through service, we're doing it through leadership, and we're doing it through the concept of being part of something greater than ourselves. We're being part of a greater community and a community to help others become greater in their spaces as well.
Wow, Deborah, that's absolutely incredible. And that's where we piggyback, we go back to these communities, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, teach our children so much along with, what we create in our homes for our family. Just having you seen your son seeing someone that needs help in the airport in a wheelchair and at such a young age was able to step up to that responsibility. It's really, really impressive. And as parents, we have to demonstrate it and also take them along, right? So every year with Team Smile, Team Smile is a nonprofit organization that actually pours into communities. So just before back to just before schools opened up, they team up with like stadiums, right? And they recreate the stadium, like football stadium or baseball stadium, and they create like a dental office in the stadium. So all the dental professionals in whichever state that they're doing this volunteer service will come together. So there's been a couple years that I bring my son and my daughter along, and they'll be the front desk. They'll be checking in the patients. But I'm really grateful that I brought them. So right now it's like if the pandemic when the pandemic happened, it was on a pause. So right now they're like, Mom, when is Team Smile coming back? So Team Smile came back last year and they're back this year. But what's really honorable is that in my daughter's college application, she used that as an example. She said, she volunteered with Team Smile, and it was such an amazing experience being able to check the patients in, being able to chart along with a dentist. It was such an empowering, movement, and that's why she's able to make a decision on dentistry that she wants to be in the field. So teaching our children how to volunteer and give back to the community is really, really important. But we also have to set that example so we can become unstoppable families. Now, when it comes to volunteer, how often do you and your family volunteer in the community, Deborah?
Well, pre-COVID, quite a lot. With COVID, we have pulled back quite a bit because of my own health risks. But
Okay.
pre-COVID, we volunteered all the time.
All right.
And I know your camera just popped off, but one of the ones that I found to be one of the most memorable, a couple of ones that pop out in my mind as being very memorable. I will say one of right before COVID shut down, my younger son and I went to a homeless shelter for Christmas, and my temple was actually serving the Christmas dinner. And since I knew that wasn't exactly something that I could do, I brought my jewelry stamping supplies. And while made bracelets, my son would go up and down where everybody was sitting, inviting them to come up, inviting them to technology. So I was explaining, I don't know if we were able to hear or not. And he would go up and down, explain to people that I was making this bracelets for people as gifts for themselves and for family members. And he would bring them up to me and he would take their orders and then he'd bring them back to everybody. But they've helped me as well with different fundraising programs. We've worked with homeless shelters and we've been doing service projects for, well, I've been doing as long as I could possibly remember. I remember for my older son, the first thing that I really remember was about age 3. He started saving up every coin and penny that he could find, and then he saved it up and we matched it, and we went over to the Ronald McDonald House, and he donated it to them. Now, mind you, I remember it because he put every coin individually into their canister, but then the person who ran the Ronald McDonald House asked my son Martin what he wanted to be done with it. And he asked them to purchase toys for the playroom because he didn't think they had enough toys. And one of the hurricanes had happened around that time in my older, and the concept of not enough shoes being available. So my son said, "Can we help collect shoes?" And we went and decorated a cardboard box with a bunch of recycled materials. And he put it outside of his little preschool area and asked people to bring in shoes. So even as a small child, they were able to find ways to start participating and giving back to our communities. So we've done everything from food drives and fundraising endeavors to working in homeless shelters to cleaning up the streets or cleaning up the parks and playgrounds to helping other kids and tutoring and the crafting elements as well. So we've continuously done those things. Each year, we've always done making cards during the holiday times, bringing them to the nursing shelters, nursing homes, and singing carols and bringing the Christmas and the holiday spirit into the spaces there. We've done it for Veterans Day and Memorial Service days as well to honor veterans in the nursing homes as well as in with along with the Legion, American Legion, and other programs too. So we continuously work with different service endeavors. Service has always been near and dear to my family and near and dear to me. So it's something I definitely teach my kids.
Deborah, that is so incredible. I mean, it started from my mom. My mom was a Girl Scout leader. So you know what that means, right? I've got to go to every camp and I'm going to do everything. And then it rolled off into me and then it rolled off into my children. So I'm sure my grandkids will roll off into it's such, these communities teach you so much. And then it's a lesson that you bring into your career, right? So you just act different, right? You do different things. And I love volunteering, going to the homeless shelter. You meet so many unique personalities, just giving back to them, and I also love their stories because you meet so many individual and everyone has a unique story. So I love to hear from them. And when I give back every year with Team Smile or any volunteer service with dentistry, it's just an rewarding feeling at the end of the day. As they said it, Deborah, right? Love your career to the point that you can work for free, right? And it feels like you're working, right? So it's so important that we show our children how to do so, okay? Because you look at life differently, right? And you appreciate things differently, and you also help other companies differently. And that's what we want to pass on to our children, which we are already doing. And it was such an incredible Family Talk Friday with you, Deborah. We learned so much, and I'm
Thank
sure our
you.
audience learned so much too from us. And remember, everyone, we are here every Friday at 4 p.m. We're pouring into so many families' life, and always have your questions ready because we're ready to answer them. And I hope everyone enjoyed the segment. I did, Deborah did. And Deborah, do you have a final note for the audience?
To love your family, to spend time, to choose to do so together and to have fun. Because what it really comes down to is when we show our family how much we love each other and how much we're there for each other and how we grow together, we are unstoppable. And thank you so much for having me here today.
Awesome, Deborah. It was absolutely a pleasure having you. And my final say is, yeah, spend time with your family. Just love on them, chuckle with them, have good times with them, go to the park with them, talk to them, just keep in touch. It's really important. And especially during this time, during this pandemic, reach out to everyone. Simple text, a simple phone call, but spend that quality time. It's a lifetime impact. And then you will definitely have an unstoppable family. I'm Tanya, and we have Deborah here, and we are so delighted that you were able to join us this evening. And tune in next week, Friday, at the same time, and we'll continue a different discussion that pertains to family. Thank you, everyone.